أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون أياما معدودات فمن كان منكم مريضا أو على سفر فعدة من أيام أخر وعلى الذين يطيقونه فدية طعام مسكين فمن تطوع خيرا فهو خير له وأن تصوموا خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان فمن شهد منكم الشهر فليصمه ومن كان مريضا أو على سفر فعدة من أيام أخر يريد الله بكم اليسر ولا يريد بكم العسر ولتكملوا العدة ولتكبروا الله على ما هداكم ولعلكم تشكرون وإذا سألك عبادي عني فإني قريب أجيب دعوة الداع إذا دعان فليستجيبوا لي وليؤمنوا بي لعلهم يرشدون لله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض وإن تبدوا ما في أنفسكم أو تخفوه يحاسبكم به الله فيغفر لمن يشاء ويعذب من يشاء والله على كل شيء قدير آمن الرسول بما أنزل إليه من ربه والمؤمنون كل آمن بالله وملائكته وكتبه ورسله لا نفرق بين أحد من رسله وقالوا سمعنا وأطعنا غفرانك ربنا وإليك المصير لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها لها ما كسبت وعليها ما اكتسبت ربنا لا تؤاخذنا إن نسينا أو أخطأنا ربنا ولا تحمل علينا إصرا كما حملته على الذين من قبلنا ربنا ولا تحملنا ما لا طاقة لنا به واعف عنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا أنت مولانا فانصرنا على القوم الكافرين.
So good afternoon everyone. Welcome to another event of ISGH Job Networking. Let's give a minute or two for more people to join. We are expecting a heavy crowd this event. So welcome again. Thanks everybody for joining. We have a big crowd today. We have people who signed up from greater city of Houston. We have people who signed up from California and from other locations here in United States. We hope that you are all doing great and you are all safe. Today we have a very related topic to what we are all experiencing nationwide. So we will be talking about the online teaching tips for teachers. Nobody could imagine 3-4 weeks ago that all these schools, public, private, that they will move online. And with this happened very fast, really, we try to collaborate all together in order to learn from the lessons learned from everybody and share and benefit. And today, Dalia Elmetwally will give us from her experience. Dalia has been in the online learning industry for years and years and years on the national and on the international level. Currently, she is a Wharton County Junior College instructor, and at the same time, she is an ICNA Teachers Guidance College instructor. She is a principal at Mariam Islamic Center, MICS, and she has till now 3 degrees, master degrees, applied linguistics, English, and Islamic education, and she is almost done with her PhD. So and now I will give the presentation to Dalia to start.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Am I unmuted now?
Yep. Go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How is everybody doing today?
Alhamdulillah, we're fine.
Alhamdulillah. Barakallahu fikum jami'an for coming. I want to start my presentation, inshallah, with a short dua. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك رب اغفر وارحم وأنت خير الراحمين ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم اللهم أعنا وأعن المسلمين Allahumma help us and help all Muslims, Ya Rabb. Allahumma accept our repentance and forgive us, Ya Rahman, as-samawati wal-ard. Allahumma shfina wa shfi mardana wa marda al-muslimin. Allahumma cure us and cure our sick and the sick of the Muslims. Ya Rahman, as-samawati wal-ard. A'inna wa a'in al-muslimin. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه ومن اتبعه بإخلاص إلى يوم الدين وارض عنا معهم أجمعين اللهم آمين اللهم آمين اللهم آمين. So today we're talking about a very important topic. We're talking about online school. What do we do about it? How can we handle it? All of a sudden, we had this like creature landing in our laps where we have to deal with a classroom. And, you know, I commend all teachers that have been struggling to work their way through this. And I want to start with a few I want to cover a few tips, inshallah, that I have experienced throughout my life and that I've also researched. But I have been teaching online for 3 years, and as such, I would like to share with you. And I also, alhamdulillah, I'm a researcher, so I've actually done a lot of research as well. So the very first thing we need to start with is we always need to start with intentions. So we have to always start with a dua, and we have to always renew our intentions. Why are we doing something? We're doing it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the only reason we're doing it. And then we need to always not just start it in our hearts, but even when we walk into our classrooms, always remember to call on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, seek his help, and always just see where you really stand. We are at the very end, we're very, very weak humans, and we need the Creator. We need God to help us. We need Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, when it comes to choosing platforms, most teachers do not have the flexibility of choosing a platform. This is something that the admins actually do. But the reason for my having this slide at the very beginning of my presentation is I want to tell you, if something doesn't work, you know, you can always pick up, you can always go and talk to your principals, your admins, because there are plenty out there. Now, this is certainly not an exhaustive list. This is a list of 33, but by no means is it even close to being exhaustive. As such, I kind of marked the ones I've already dealt with before, and I wanted you to see these are the Google Meet, Zoom, the WebEx, Microsoft Teams, Skype, Skype, depends on how you want to say it, Adobe Connect, and freeconferencecall.com. TeamViewer, I also used it, but I didn't use it for teaching. So I kind of figured that I'm just going to have it there without the whole shazam, you know. And then we've got a lot of other things. So what is the very first thing we need to do? We need to plan our physical space. Like, what am I going to do? I'll need to be able to think, okay, I'm going to use a camera. Now, I have been considering using a camera, but for some reason I can start it. But I really need us to think that using cameras is something that is really, really important, especially if we're talking with younger kids. So we have to be using, they need to see us. It's difficult enough for them that they are working in front of a television, in front of a screen, in front of a computer, depending on how their parents are going to connect it. Now, we know that some parents will actually use Chromecast and put it on TV, right? We know that phones are a big thing. So why do we use a camera? Because students can actually relate when they see a teacher. And then we need to adjust our camera before class starts. So we need to make, those of us who are wearing hijab, we need to make sure our hijab is worn properly, etc., that the camera is adjusted, it's leveled with the eyes. And then we need to make sure that our setting is clean. You know, one of the things that we may actually struggle with is if we've got like a cluttered room or a pile of laundry or whatever, some of the platforms allows you to put a different background so that you block off this. Now, if you're like a clean freak like myself, then you will just actually have to go ahead and remove all that clutter, because it's really important that whatever our audience see, our audience would see a beautiful background. Now, the next thing I really want to stress very, very much is please make sure you do not teach from bed, especially if you're on camera. So it becomes so important for us to actually pay attention that we are really doing it the right way. You know, teachers who actually have their pillows behind them or the headboard of the bed, that does not look professional whatsoever. So we have to work on that. You cannot lie down while you're teaching because that's not professional. So the idea is that you need to look professional. Plan your light. Now, one of the things we say is that natural light is the best. However, sometimes you can't just physically pick up your desk and move it around to just put it in front of the window so that you sit facing the window. In this case, you know, you could just kind of borrow one of those night shades from one of the bedrooms, or even some of them are really sold for around $10 or even less. Just do something where you can actually have that light that you need. You also need to plan your appearance. You need to dress professionally from waist up. No one cares what you're wearing waist down because we're not going to see it. But you need to dress for success. In other words, you need to make sure that everything you're wearing kind of reflects on how you want to be perceived. And as such, it really becomes very important for you to spend some time looking at yourself in the mirror, deciding what you're going to wear. Sit upright, do not lean, do not slouch, do not lounge. Look enthusiastic and not bored. You know, one of the things that we really kind of not think about is that we sometimes just simply look like so miserable, and we don't realize that we need to smile, because smiling is so important for us. Right? So we need to look enthusiastic, not bored. You need to remind yourself you're going to have a smile, even a smirk will do, right? But make sure you're not yawning, you know, any of that stuff that tells your audience, I'm bored, I'm here because I need a paycheck. Because we are in such an important profession as teachers. We are actually building the future, and you need to think of yourself as somebody who's been assigned a mission, and your mission is beautiful, is honorable, it's amazing. Now, again, do not eat online. I'm gonna stop here for a second. I need to ask my host, Brother Abdul Hamid. I've been trying to hit camera and it's not working.
Yes, let me check 1 second.
Did you make me
yes.
a present?
Yes. Now, can you try now?
Okay, let me see. No, it's still not working.
It's still not. I will make you the host then, okay?
That's what I had asked you.
Okay.
No, co-host. Make me a co-host. And I apologize about this, guys. We tried it earlier and it worked, so I'm not sure what's happening. Because a lot of the stuff I'm telling you don't even kind of see how.
Seems like it comes, then it goes away. Brother Abdul Hamid, try to make a host for now and see if that's.
Yes. So, Dalia, I made you the host right now. Can you try your camera?
It's still not working. And I've been pressing it over and over and over again.
Okay,
maybe you can share the screen. Maybe then, you know.
No, give me 1 second.
But you can see my screen already, right?
Yes, we can see the PowerPoint. Yes.
Okay.
1 second. Can you try now?
Yeah, and have you enabled your video?
Yes, it was working earlier. I was actually in meetings all day.
Assalamu alaikum. Maybe if you stop sharing your screen first, then enable your camera and then share again.
Okay, I'll try that. No, you know what? Let me step out of the meeting. I'll come back.
Okay. Sorry, everybody, about this technical difficulties. We already tried this. Yes, we tried this earlier. It was working very well, but this is something that really it is very expected. Exactly. And yes, and you need to get used to it. There is really, as a teacher, you don't really need to panic or anything. It is just a matter of
exactly seconds. Yeah.
Yes.
That's why, Brother Musi, we have co-teachers in every classroom. So for some reason, if someone has had technical difficulty, the other teacher can take care of the class.
That's a smart backup plan. I agree with you.
Alhamdulillah, we do have the same, like co-teachers in every class.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
So Dalia, I made you the co-host again.
Okay. No, I think it's probably the size of the room, because it is not working, and now I'm not even sharing anything. So I have no idea what's happening, but that's okay. I think I'll just continue. Sorry, guys.
Can you share your screen? Can you share your presentation?
Yes, I can. You want me to share the screen? I'd rather just share my presentation.
Yeah, sure. I mean, yes, I mean, share the presentation.
Okay. There you go.
Yes, it is loading. Go ahead.
Okay, so sorry guys, I kind of got all dressed up in my hijab and everything, but then you won't get to see me. But al-khira inshallah, al-khira fi maqdarahu Allah.
Yes.
Yes. Alhamdulillah. So to go back to talking about planning your appearance, we were talking about sitting upright, not leaning or slouching or lounging. Among the position that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has bestowed upon me is the principle of Miriam Masjid Weekend School. And one of the things I tell the teachers, choose the place you're going to sit, make sure you're sitting at where your back is not slouched. And we're not lounging, because the way we position ourselves is the way we're telling our students what to expect of us. So one of the things I teach at college is body language, how to read body language. And it's so important for us to understand that half the message we're giving through how we're holding ourselves, right? So we need to look enthusiastic, not bored. We need to remind ourselves to smile. This is where I stopped actually. So we need to always just have that amazing smile on our face. Now, again, a smirk will do, because some of us kind of get tired of smiling all the time. But if we leave ourselves, just look at the presentation in front of us, we're just going to look dull. We're going to look completely formidable. And that's a'udhu billah from looking as such, because that is scary to students. Also, do not eat online. Yes, we are allowed to drink, grab something, drink some water, drink some tea, but eating involves like all that, munching, and it doesn't look nice. It looks messy. Imagine you're dropping stuff and going down to get it. The actual chewing, so also avoid chewing gum. It really does not look good, because most of you know by now that students can click on your picture and blow you up in the whole room, so you look really big. And also do not talk on the phone. Now, sometimes I have to talk to students because they cannot, that's in my college classes, because they cannot like get on the online class. And so I would just say to everybody in class, hey, such and such student is calling me. I think he or she has a problem logging in. I'll answer this call. So then you actually make sure that the rest of your attendees, your students, understand why you're doing something. It is not that they're allowed to do the same thing, because this is very restricted. You will have to explain. You have to practically understand that they are human beings who have a right to understand what you're doing. So learning is actually a shared experience. It's a mutual experience. Our job is not to just simply sit there and talk all the time like I'm doing right now, but I'm doing it because it's a talk. Our job is to get those students to talk and understand and think with us. Now it's so important to have a distraction-free environment. So today, before my this talk, I went to my mom and I was like, Mom, I'm gonna have this very important talk. So I didn't even need to tell her to lower the television, or she kind of understood the rest of the stuff. She was like, oh, I'll make dua for you. And I was like, yes, please. So really what we really need to do is bring those children, sit them down, and say, you can't be running into the room, you cannot walk into the room. Some of us do not have the luxury of being in a room and they have to sit in the dining room on a table. Then we just have to tell the kids they can't be running through this, or etc. So you need to plan a quiet room, keep your work environment free from all distractions, television, family members, household chores. You can't leave your classroom and go to just say, oh, let me check on whatever's on the stove. We can't really do that, right? We have to think that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving us the opportunity to teach from home. This is good, this is relaxing, but don't start doing the chores that you were doing regularly in your house. If any of your family members want to talk to you and it's really, really, really important, you can take permission that, just a second, I'll be right back with you, mute yourself and disable the camera for a few seconds. Now, disabling the camera is so important because you don't know if that spouse is coming up fully dressed, properly dressed or not, how embarrassing it's going to be for you. If that kid who's coming is going to do something that, like, oh my God, you never know, kids can surprise you, put his finger in his nose or whatever. And so you don't want to even get there, right? So let's be prepared. also prepare before you start. You want to have all your material. Like right before I started, I got my water, I've got my books, I've got my mouse, I got my juice, just in case I really want some juice instead. You know, I've already uploaded everything I need to play for you. I've got some pictures that I want to show you, but I added them to my PowerPoint, because it's so important that we actually make it easy for ourselves. It's stressful enough, let alone actually having to go ahead and mess around with trying to figure out, how am I going to do this? Oh, where's that video that I was, you know, looking for? So we can't do that when we shouldn't be doing that. So one of the other things we really need to be doing is we need to train on technology. Now, I just mentioned to you that Brother Abdul Hamid Morsi and I trained in this room yesterday and today. We had to make sure we know what we're doing. We practiced. My presentation was ready. I put it up. He looked at it. You know, we work together because it's so important to train. And sometimes you can just train with your husband. A lot of my teachers in the weekend school train with their husbands. So their husbands are helping them around. Many more train with their children, especially if they're teenagers, or the teenagers help them how to, you know, put stuff up, do this, do that, etc. So always, and if you don't have anybody, you can ask another teacher. We're not in this dilemma on our own. There are other teachers, right? So even at college, some of my some of my office mates actually reach out to me and say, hey, Dalia, how can you do this? Even the head of my department was asking me how I did something, and I ask as well, right? I like technology, but I'm certainly not way up there, but I'm still certainly among those who are learning. So it's very important to train on technology. It's very important to work with cameras and mics. Look at your camera when you're addressing your students. Do not look at their small figureheads. There will be figureheads on the side. If you want to do like blow your nose, please, by all means, do that, but mute your mic and switch off your camera temporarily, disable it. No one wants to see a big, huge face in front of them that's blowing its nose. It's funny, yes, but it's not something you want to leave your students with in the memory of their professors or their teachers. Do never mute your mic or disable the camera for a very long time, because students zone off. So it's very, very important to make sure you're always grabbing their attention. Do not record the class without prior authorization of the school. Now, many of us actually can record classes, and what we really need to understand is that we shouldn't be doing it without administration saying it's okay, because we may have to take permissions from parents, permission slips, and we also need to control where those classes will go. The school will take the appropriate steps, because we may put it somewhere. Now, a brain teaser. I need everyone to answer me. Do you see a hidden baby?
Yes.
Do you see the hidden baby?
I think.
I do.
Yes.
Yes, I do see the baby.
Where are the hands?
On the branches.
Yeah, the hand and the branches, holding the branches.
Okay, beautiful. Yes, absolutely correct. So there's the hidden baby.
Yeah. The left side.
It's the shape of the.
So what have I done right now, guys? I have actually done a brain teaser. Brain teasers are very, very important so that they would keep our brains working, because if someone keeps on talking like I've been talking for a good 8 minutes, you know, I was talking 8 minutes and then I stopped and we went outside and then I came back, then I'm just keeping you all still with me. Otherwise, I will lose you. So one of the things we need to make sure is make sure you are online and not disconnected. Now, the best way to do that is to ask your students, can you hear me? Can you see me? Etc. In my college classes, I have designated 2 students, because it was a face-to-face class that turned into an online class. So I asked 2 students to text me if they cannot see me or if they cannot hear me. So these 2 students from every single class I have. In this way, I'm controlling the fact that someone is going to tell me. Now, when it comes to our weekend school, I've assigned an admin in every class. So the admin, so each admin just kind of controls 4 or 5 classes. they are kind of floating from one class to the other, they can tell if there is a problem. In classes where students are a little bit active, I have volunteers as well in the classroom. So you need to kind of plan according to how your needs and how you can actually, what your needs are and how you can meet those needs. So if you get disconnected, you may never know, right? And this is the brain teasers I was talking about, to keep students engaged, to ensure that you're still connected. So this is a way for everybody to actually answer me. Now, if you answered me, you're connected in both ways. You can hear me, so you answered me, but you're actually back from zoning off. Had you zoned off? And if you haven't, that's amazing. I'm glad and happy and thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Again, one of the most important things that I tell my teachers in the weekend school, do not panic if you get disconnected. We will all get disconnected at one point or the other. It is not the end of the world. Now, what you need to do is call the admin or the principal or whatever chain of commands you actually have in your school. So your school administration has to have a chain where they would tell you if you feel you're disconnected, your computer is freezing, your computer went completely berserk on you, this is the person you need to call or text, and this is the next one. And if the person does not respond to your text within maybe a minute, you need to call. So I have a plan. It's called the plan of action that I actually went over with all teachers. Then I put it in writing and I uploaded it. I sent it via email and I sent it via WhatsApp. I need all my teachers to know what to do in case they get disconnected. For my college classes, I simply tell my students, if my computer freezes, I have instructed these two same students in every class what to do, right? So they are actually going to be we use Blackboard in college, and so they are going to pull from Blackboard, share screen. I've trained them. I got them to come and train how they're going to handle the classroom, what they're going to share, what they're going to do. And actually, I would call them and walk them through it again, because of course students would forget. But I have a plan of action. The idea is always have a plan of action, right? It becomes so important. Now, you also need to teach your students technology. They will get frustrated if they have no idea how to mute themselves or unmute themselves. So I spent the first class telling students what to do, and I actually even did something different. On Blackboard, we have the ability to annotate, like I have it right here, right? See how I'm annotating? I can actually write stuff. So I actually tell my students, get it out of your system. I put an actual presentation, and I say, everybody, now I made you all presenters, go ahead and annotate my presentation. They're having fun, right? And I use it as a break. So I do it every single class. I go like, who wants to write? Everybody can write. So I give them time where they can mess around, because we're humans, we can't sit without messing around. So I have to recognize their young age, and that's my college students. And they can just mess around. And then sometimes I forget to turn them back into into participants, not presenters. And so they kind of mess with me or change my slide or do something that I didn't want them to do. And in this case, I just say simply, hey, I'm gonna take that privilege away. And it usually makes them stop what they were doing, because no one wants to lose that privilege. Remember, for school kids, parents may be available for the first couple of weeks. They can assist the kids with the stuff, how to mute yourself, what to do if you get kicked out. But after that, the kids are on their own, so you have to teach them. Now, my teachers in the weekend school thought it was impossible to teach the kids. And they were like, I have a teacher who said, I teach 5-year-olds, Sister Dalia, how am I going to teach them to handle it? I said, well, show them, make, sketches, draw, let them try it. Now I walk, like it's been 3 weeks or so ever since we started. Maybe today was the 4th weekend. And whenever, and those kids, she would just tell them, now mute yourself, now unmute yourself. And then if something a little bit too much, she goes like, go call your mom. So those 5-year-olds can actually mute and unmute themselves, and they can follow instructions. So you'd be very surprised how much our kids can do. Minimize the number of clicks, especially at the beginning. Don't overwhelm them by saying, okay, now log into Google, blah, blah, blah. Just send a link, like what Brother Morsi has done with all of you. He sent you a link, and this way you all clicked on the link. We didn't give you a list of instructions on how to join. Now, that also is very important. In my college classes, if I'm teaching a short story or an essay, I already have it uploaded in front of my students so that we read it together, and it's a part of my presentations. So I go into class early, I upload everything I need for that classroom. I'm ready. And I'm even imagining, what if they ask me about this? What if they ask me about this? Everything is open. Now, every now and then they surprise me, ask me about something that I haven't opened, but I'm still prepared with everything else. So that is the split of a second that I take. Do not waste time in classroom. Remember, our contract is not with the school. It is with our maker, with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we need to honor that contract with our lives. In other words, prepare. It is so important to prepare for class. Prepare, prepare, prepare. It is so important that we focus on preparing. Do not waste time doing other things like, let me decide what to do today. Let me decide how I'm going to structure my class. This should all come beforehand. Avoid boring classes. Initiating and encouraging discussions is so important. We sometimes think that we can only have discussions in face-to-face classes. I build discussions into my classes. Unfortunately, cannot really do that here because I'm trying to shoot for 45 minutes. That's it for talking, so that I have some time for questions and answers. However, it is very important to avoid, to encourage participation, avoid being the only person who's talking all the time, 5 days a week for however long your classroom is. Always start with a little bit of discussion and have students tell you what they think about whatever you're discussing. Do not expect to teach with the same speed. You are actually teaching face-to-face is way faster than teaching online, because face-to-face you can grab their attention, but they will keep on asking you online the same stuff you just said, right? So one of the things I do is I actually open, I share screens and I open Word and I write some of my instructions on Word so that they can see my instructions as I'm writing them, if I have not already had those instructions in a PowerPoint beforehand. So always expect to teach 2/3 of what you have planned to teach. Avoid talking to students. We talk with our students, not to them. And the difference is when you're talking to someone, you're just talking, like I'm doing right now, unfortunately. But if you're talking with someone, you talk, you stop, they talk back, you have a discussion, and this is what we need to have in a regular classroom. Special needs students, it's very important for us to understand that the student did everything we say about regular students, you actually need to multiply by 4 for special needs students. But one of the most important things that we actually need drastically is getting the parents involved. Now, special needs students will be harder to teach how to mute themselves, will be harder to get them focused all the time. So you have to set an individual plan for each student. Again, the rule usually goes like 5 students per 1 teacher. So it's very important for us to have that number observed. You may actually need to go online with a lesser number of students per teacher, or maybe you can have like 8 with a teacher and an assistant. Maybe you can use some kind of a software that allows you to shoot off onto different meeting rooms. Remember, there is no one size that fits all when it comes to education, and especially when it comes to special needs children. Divide work into small portions with an end result at the end of each section. So in other words, they have to feel they are achieving something. So make it very small chunks, and we'll talk about the timing in a few slides from now. It has to be like, you're gonna reach this goal, hey, you reached it, good job, right? And then you go to the next one. It cannot be a whole exercise. It has to be kind of small bites. Think about feeding a baby or feeding a child. You're gonna have those small bites so that they can chew on them. Also plan a lot of activities, but again, lots of activities and games for special needs students are actually a little bit different, because one kid may like to play with others, another kid it gets completely horrified if you have that kid playing with so many kids. So you have to be very careful what you're doing, how you're doing it, and of course, if you have already been working with those kids since the beginning of the year, your struggles are less, but sometimes the struggles are still there. Now, I was talking about not talking to your students, but talking with them. So I'm going to give you just 30 seconds to read this Dilbert comic. I really like it. I got it from Dilbert Online. So remember, one of the things that have to do with boring is that we cannot have too many slides, right? And this is what I was talking about earlier. According, and this is from Stanford University, according to a common belief, the average attention span of a typical university student is between 10 and 15 minutes. That's 18 and above, right? This period is even shorter with younger students. So their teachers have to rely on different tricks that will bring the pupils or the students back to reality. Also, from Concordia University, they say that our 21st century students are completely different from when you and I were students. We're talking about the single activity should not exceed 80 minutes, right? And between 7 to 8 minutes with a little bit younger age, and even as low as 2 minutes for the very young students. And as such, we're really talking, this is what we're talking about, right? We're talking about ranges where if I'm talking to pre-K and KGs, I'm going to ask them to stand up and stretch, and I will do the same thing with the elementary students, right? So we have to build that into our classroom. We have to build the fact that they need to stand up. We can't keep on telling them, sit down, you're not paying attention, because by their moving, they can actually gain attention whenever they actually sit down. How do we motivate our students? Discussions, 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 right? We have to have discussions. Kids love to talk. It is part and parcel of their lives. So give them a chance, build talking time into your plan. Know that each student will need to talk maybe 5 minutes or maybe 2 minutes, whatever, according to whatever you're going to be teaching. Now you need, as a mentor, to guide the student to be talking about whatever you are focused on. Games, stories. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches the best of the manners through stories, and he tells us that these are the best examples, and so we need to do that. Videos, documentaries, depending on the age of the students, you may actually assign them to watch the videos on their own, but with younger kids, you want to build it into your classroom, and you can actually embed those videos into your PowerPoint so that you're not fumbling around from one to the other. Avoid boring slides. As you can see, I tried my best to keep a lot of white space, positive and negative space control. Do not overclutter your slides. Make sure that I'm using 30 font size 30. So make sure it's actually easier to read, right? And as you can see, I'm not reading my slides all through. Do not put many slides. Again, I'll give you 30 seconds to look at this one. And I know I can hear you laughing, so I'm going to imagine you're laughing. Okay, so what do we do so that our classes are not boring? Rhetorical questions to brainstorm. I just asked you a rhetorical question. What do we do, right? Now, what has this power of kind of grabbing attention? And then give students half a minute to think about the answer. Because some students may be really fast and they will think about the answer right away, others are not. So we need to actually build this into our presentation. Show pictures related to concepts you're teaching. You can hold students' attention by asking them to relate the lessons to events. Again, this is from Stanford University. So you can show specific, you can show them something and say, how does this apply to your everyday life? I say that a lot in my literature classes at college. So I keep on referring to how can you apply this in your life? What are you doing with it? Get them to do some critical thinking. Get them to think outside the box. It is very, very important for us to do so. Teaching mathematics, physics, and similar subjects, these are very dry subjects for children, and trying to do that online is actually a challenge. But you know, we can do it by alternating methodologies. Now imagine if you ask students to, you make them presenters and ask them to write on the whiteboard and ask them to try this and try that. They will be having fun trying to write. Or, you know, you can just simply get them to write something and show you by raising it in front of the camera. You need to change your voice tone. You need to change your intonation. You can do multiple choice, praise them for whatever they're trying. Even if they get the wrong answer, just say, thank you so much for trying. Everybody else did not want to try, but you are my hero. But can I tweak what you said? And then give the correct answer completely, do away with his answer if it's all incorrect. English, biology, and similar subjects. Play games with vocabulary like hangman or whatever games, you know, the picture games, whatever you want to do. Tell the story of the stories. Now, every story has a story behind it. And the only way you can know it is if you prepare and research it. Show videos, pictures. You know, we've got such amazing wealth of on Animal Planet, Discovery Channel, etc. We can actually get and show our students. When I was teaching humanities, I was able to get such interesting material. I have taught my students so much through videos, and that was college, of course. Use brain teasers, and I keep on using them over and over again. But it's time I ask you again, Brother Musi, can you please unmute everyone? How many holes do we have?
5.
Someone says 5.
6.
Someone says 6.
I did.
Souls.
Any?
6.
6. A la una, a la dos, a la tres. Who wants to go more?
8.
Where did you see the 8?
Oh, yeah, 8. Right, 8.
Where did you see the 8?
7, 8. Yes, 8.
Yeah, 8.
Good answer. Yes. Very good. You look at the 5 and 6 here, it's actually 5 and 6, and since you see the background, we can also see the 7 and 8, which is the holes in the back, right? So these teasers, these brain teasers are very, very important for our attention grabbers, right? Never end class abruptly. Always set a timer 5 to 10 minutes before the end of class. Always take time to answer questions, give instructions for the following week. It's so important to give instructions. If I ever forget to do so, my college students are like, yeah, Mrs. Elmetwally, you haven't given us instructions. What are we going to do next time? Because I've trained them so much. Now, I have it all on Blackboard, but I still say it. So many of us use Quick Schools or use Sycamore, use Google Classroom, whatever we're using, we can actually still, we can have it, but then we still need to say the instructions as well in class. Wrapping up your class, this is a quotation from Concordia University. It says it's very important to wrap a class because it bookends it. It ensures students understood the purpose and the information they have received. And the best way is to do it through reference questions, activities, ask students to apply the information taught on the activity, discuss how the class did today and how it would actually relate to their homework, or how it will relate to next class, or next class you say, how does last class relate to what we said this class? So you can alternate techniques where you don't need to use the same exact method every single time. Communicate inside and outside classroom. Always make sure you call on every single kid in the classroom, and the only way you can do that is if you know their names. And if you really do not know their names, well, get a list of the names and put them next to you and just make a check mark next to every student you ask a question to. Students feel left out if you don't call on them, and calling on them ensures that they will do the work for next time because they know they will be called on. In my college classes, I tell my students I'm going to be calling on every single one of you, and I do. And by the time I memorize their names, they tell me I'm the only instructor who memorized their names. It's only from Allah, alhamdulillah. But you know, most of our classrooms are not that large, and I'm sure you can handle it. But even if you don't memorize the names, just have that list and the check mark trick, right? always maintain online presence. Even when I get my students to go into groups and discuss, I'm kind of getting into those groups and discussing with them what they're talking about, how they're doing it. Remember that not having a teacher physically in front of the students makes students nervous. So we're going to try and ease this by answering questions in timely manner. Acknowledge students' anxiety. It's one of the problems we have is that online dehumanizes teaching. All of a sudden, like right now, you guys cannot even see me. You don't know how I look like, right? How I look like. I mean, unless you guys know me from before. So imagine how difficult it is for students. And even those of you who see me, when we're all adults, some of you will relate to me, some of you will need some time. So remember, kids don't like change. All of a sudden they were taken from their classrooms, the friends that they made, and they're put in front of a computer. We have to understand that, and we have to give them time to talk and express their feelings. And I do that with my online class. I do that with our weekend school students, where I actually tell them how do they feel about it. I walk into the different classrooms, not physically, but virtually walk into the classrooms to ask the students how they're feeling and get them to talk. Do not assign too much work at the beginning of going online. It is devastating enough for the students trying to keep track of what's happening, trying to understand where to find this stuff. And it's very difficult for you when you assign more work. It means you're grading more. So be very, be kind to yourself and be kind to your students. Focus so much on the work you can actually do in the classroom. Put your time towards preparing very good presentations, because the minute you attract those students in class, this is where you do most of the teaching anyway. Now, can you manage this one in 5 seconds? Go ahead and read it and give me the answer.
Just twice.
2 words of spot. Can you spot a mistake?
Yes, correct. So we actually have twice. Feedback. Feedback is a two-way activity. You give students immediate feedback. This is very important. Remember to be very, very generous with compliments, but you can also, and you should also, ask students about their feedback. How was today's class? How would you like me to do it differently? I did that with my, I do that every single week with my college students. And I also do that with the students in our weekend school. It doesn't really matter the age of students, they still can give you amazing ideas. And it's so important for us to know how they feel, because when they feel that they are partners in the educational process, they are more willing to learn. Foster a good relationship with your students. Remember, students are not our kids, they are our amana, trust. You are the authority in the classroom. Don't allow yourself to argue with students. Don't yell at any students. Do not lose your temper. Do not make fun of students. Do not call students bad names. Don't even call them bad boy and bad girl. And don't embarrass students or shame them. You know, telling them, oh, you did not do your homework. How do you expect me? How do you expect to understand? That is not the way to go with the students. But you should be saying something within the positive lines. I really expect a lot of you. Please make sure you meet my expectations. Do your homework next time. So we're talking about the future. We're basing it on the future. We're never going to shame them or bring them down. We are going to understand that they are also suffering and struggling. Avoid favoritism. You know, like Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, we cannot control our hearts, but we can control our actions. So make sure that there is no obvious selection of favorite students. Never, 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 never kick a student out of the virtual classroom. And I want to credit Brother Morsi for this point and a few others that I have mentioned. And it is so important, because the minute you kick a student out, and it has already happened in our weekend school, and the student doesn't want to come back again because he feels like his pride got hurt, right? So it becomes really, this is not the way to handle it. So I instructed my admins, next time, all they need to do is call the parent and get the parent involved instead of kicking the student. So it's really, really important for us to, and I'm not really sure if the student left or if he got kicked out, just to be fair to our admins. I do not know what happened, but I know that I was told that the student is refusing to come back to the classroom after he left. that caveat. Always compliment students. I talked about that. Compliment them in front of their parents. Compliment them in front of other students. Always compliment them. It's really, really important. Never ignore students who follow rules. So for example, if I tell you you'll need to raise your hand if you have a question, then in this case, I cannot ignore those who raised their hands and go to those who just started shouting the answers out. When you ask a question, understand the students have different ways of processing the question. So give a 20 to 30 second time for everyone to get their thoughts organized. Otherwise, you'll have the same students answering every single question. We have a newcomer in our classrooms. The newcomer is the parent. And parents now are listening and deciding what they want to say and how they want to say it. If they start intervening, then be very polite but firm. You refuse to get into an argument, say we can handle this after class. Ask the parents to email the principal and email you after class to discuss it. Absolutely refuse to get into an argument. If the parent keeps on saying something, say, I'll discuss this with you after class. I'll discuss this with you after class. After a while, they give up. Right? It's very, very important not to handle the parents in the wrong way, because remember, their pride in front of their children is a big thing. And then you really don't want to create a lot of chaos, and you don't want to create different points of views where one parent will say, oh, but you talked to that person in the wrong way. You just want to kind of end this. Do not plagiarize. Acknowledge all your sources. Remember that we will be borrowing a lot from the internet, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I never think that those who rejoice in what they have perpetrated and like to be praised for what they did not do, never think they are in safety from the punishment. So we need to always attribute whatever we've taken from someone. We always need to say, you know, like I mentioned, Brother Abdul Hamid Morsi's name, that I took an idea from. I actually took 3 or 4 ideas from him throughout my presentation. And it's very important for us to do so. Just before I ask if you have any questions for me, I want to remind you that we all have a contract with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept from all of us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala multiply our good deeds. May Allah help us in this very difficult time to help our children, help our parents, help our siblings. Allahumma ja'alna hudatan mahdiyin. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika nashhadu an la ilaha illa ant nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. رب اغفر وارحم وأنت خير الراحمين. ربنا تب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم وتقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم. اللهم اجعلنا هداة مهديين. اللهم اهد بنا يا رب العالمين. لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إني كنت من الظالمين. اللهم أعنا اللهم أعنا. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه ومن اتبعه بإخلاص إلى يوم الدين وارض عنا معهم أجمعين. اللهم آمين اللهم آمين اللهم آمين. Brother Morsi, please open the floor for questions, and Jazakumullah khair for...
Jazakumullah khair. Thank you, Dalia, for this very, very summarized and condensed material at the same time. I'm not sure. I'm trying to get some questions from the floor, from the chat window, but it looks like I only got one question. What would be the best software to use for a mixed audience, like for example Arabic teaching, calligraphy class, and people on different ages? So is there any recommendation for a certain software if you have a certain mixed audience that you want to deliver the message to them?
So Jazakumullah khair for the question. I'm going to talk about the ones I have in front of me. I like Google Meet very much. It's what I have personally chosen for our weekend school. The admins have helped me. May Allah bless them, Ya Rabbi, and Brother Sami with our weekend school, Ismail Masjid IT. The decision was made by the committee. Brother Abdul Hamid Morsi is also on the committee. The reason we chose Google Meet is that it allows you to, it's for free, to be honest with you. That is the main reason. And it has way less traffic. And because in Mariam Masjid we're a non-profit, we are able to have G Suite. I believe that other institutions have also used it. I like it because it allows you to have multiple classrooms at the same time. It allows you to do whatever. If you want to play Arabic, you're going to be playing Arabic. It depends on what you have on your presentation. So everything here will be adapted to both. I have used Adobe Connect in my teaching at Guidance College. It's an amazing Islamic university, by the way, it's where I got my master's in Islamic education. And now, and I've been working there for 3 years, teaching research methodology. And so I use in my research methodology classes, I use a lot of Arabic references, I use a lot of English references, so I can actually use both. So all of these, if not, I mean, most of these, if not all, allow you to use whichever language you want to, and that it actually all depends on the presentation you make. Now, we are all on Zoom, and you were able to see how I had the Arabic ayah in my one of my last slides, and I have the English, so it's actually what you feel comfortable with. Have I answered your question?
Yes.
Or
yes,
okay.
And let me go to my next question from the floor. How long are your online sessions, Dalia, and how often do you have them a week?
Are you asking about our weekend school, or are you asking about my college classes? Or my college, and again, I have 2 college classes. I've got Wharton County Junior College, and I've got Guidance College. Which one are you asking about? Is there a difference?
Actually, it says for high, I'm not sure. For high school, okay, for high school, college versus middle school and below, right?
Okay, excellent question. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you that what I recommended to all our teachers is that every hour of teaching, which is in some cases maybe 50 minutes, so college is 50 minutes. In high school, it's an hour. Every hour of teaching, we need to have activities that amounts to around 10 minutes of that hour. If my teachers go to 15 minutes, I'm okay with it. There is no way that students can sit and focus for a full 50 minutes. I'll be kidding myself. You know, you guys have done it. You actually focus for 50 minutes, but then you're the only ones who know how much fidgeting and going around and looking away you actually did. My rule of thumb is in every hour, take 50 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes off. And if you're teaching 50 minutes, because some classes are designed for 50 minutes, take 10 minutes off. If you're teaching for an hour, 15 minutes, that's my college classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays, then I certainly do way more than that. I crack jokes, we laugh, I ask the students to tell me their stories. I have some very difficult brain teasers that I also use.
So thank you, Dalia. The next question is, what is your opinion on homework for elementary and early middle on the online, with the online teaching?
Wow, you talk to my heart. This is one of my favorite topics. My first master's is in testing teaching methodologies and varieties, which is curriculum design, etc. So I am very much against testing, and in my college they allowed me to get away without testing, but they actually require me to give at least 1 test a semester, and that is the understanding. I've been with my current job, alhamdulillah, it's Allah's blessings, for a while now, and they have allowed me to just have 1 test, but I'm practically the only one in college who does that. I believe that the lesser the test, the better. We can assess students. I do not need a test to see where my students are. Whenever we're talking about for example, the week at school, my instructions to the teachers use assessment. Tell the students, tell me what I taught last time. Tell me what I taught this time. If they remember it, you achieved it. If they don't remember it, you're reminding them and you ask them again at the end of class. This is where the recapping comes in. It's very, very important for us to understand that testing and homeworks, lots of homeworks, and I've already addressed homeworks when it comes to, I've actually had that on my slides. So I'm talking more about testing because I didn't address that. So I believe in assessment, not in testing, and I believe in informal assessment, not formal assessment.
Okay, the next question is that, do you suggest that the weekend school teachers create a PowerPoint or similar presentation for each class?
Yes, absolutely. I have a presentation that I mean, every single class I have in my college classes, I have a presentation. Almost all my teachers in the weekend school have presentations for every single class. The way we're teaching online, you can't really have it without a presentation. You do need a presentation. But again, if you're doing a video, you can actually embed that in a presentation, or you can just, if you're very good with pulling a video and you won't get like all thumbs and get confused, where is my video, you can actually just have it as a separate tab. I actually request from all my teachers to have presentations for almost every single classroom. That's in the pre-K to high school. When it comes to college, I do have a presentation for every single class. My presentations are not boring, and sometimes I split them over the 2 or 3 classes for the week. I mean, I hope they're not boring.
Yes. So the next question actually for job networking team, which is, can we get an hour of continuing education for this? Where can we download the certificate? And actually this question is for Brother Nasser Majid. Brother Nasser, I'm trying to unmute you, but
Unmute everybody, Brother Morsi, and then he can talk.
Okay, Brother Nasser, are you there?
Yes, Brother Hamid, I'm here.
So the question comes to job networking team. Can we get an hour of continuing education? Is there a certificate that we can download?
Certificate to download to give that certificate?
Yes. So let me answer this question. So no, as of today, we don't have this system established yet, but it's a good point to discuss, Brother Nasser. If we can start issuing hours or credits for the continuing educations through ISGH Job Networking.
We have to establish that, but generally speaking, for any other trainings, I was just going to say, other than this, like if you do something on LinkedIn or something similar, they do give you electronic kind of certificate or showing that you have completed that. So yes, Brother Abdul Hamid, I think we can start doing that if people have attended. And
yes, we applied. Yes, we applied to give our training through LinkedIn. We are still waiting for approval. So we will see, but yes, we will take this point into consideration. The next question,
I have a question if I can ask here. I was writing actually. So this is to Sister Dalia, because I know there's a dichotomy on testing, right? How do we evaluate people? Now, most of the world as of now in institutions, they still go with the traditional approach of testing. And that does put a certain amount of pressure on the students or the learners if they're able to produce that. So from your research or your experience, how do you see that is different? Because I'm actually from both sides.
Brother Nasser, Jazakallah Khair for your question. Now we are struggling, of course, in our schools with the fact that the funding comes from the state because of the grades. And if we don't match up to those grades, then our schools are not really where we need it. We have accreditation issues. We also need to be able to score specific things. I think one of the most important things is that, you know, if we teach the kids, and we don't teach them just how to test, but we teach them how to understand the material and reach a point of being able to critically think and critically analyze whatever they have in front of them, I think this is how we're going to achieve the higher grades. It does need a lot of gutsiness, and it needs a lot of thinking outside the box for us to achieve that, but I do acknowledge that this is going to be very difficult. My thesis for my very first master's was practically designing a curriculum for a 4-year college where testing was not a part of it, formal testing was not a part of it, but assessment, where I was proving that I can actually reach the same results through informal assessment, where I could have games or I could have stories or essays or whatever. Even we do have some, in our STAR tests some element of essay writing, but of course, you know, for math and whatever, we still do have some logic. I mean, again, this would be one of those amazing circumstances where if we actually have a school that can do that. We know that Harmony school systems are trying their best to stay away from focus on testing. We know that charter schools are staying away, or some of them are staying away from testing. We know that Magnum schools, etc. So we have some systems out there that are trying to say, I'm going to teach my kids, and I'm going to get them to a level where they can actually think critically on their own. So whenever they're faced with those questions, and I'm going to train them on those questions, but it's not going to be my only focus throughout the year. Did I answer you, Brother Nasser?
Yeah, so as a follow-up question and / comment, would that be fair that since I agree with you that it requires more effort, commitment, right, to assessing in the other ways, since we, most of the time, like in this case, you know, we have weekend Islamic schools, which I'm also involved, and generally I have taught a course in university here also. It is difficult, like especially today with online teaching and the limited resources, limited attention span, and seeing that that method becomes even more challenging. Therefore, and also when many of the teachers, they are not professionally, they don't have like teaching, you know, experience, etc. So in that case, you think it is a okay medium then to test to achieve the results and strive towards, of course, that, like you were saying, you know, where we can assess through interactive means, or asking them questions and them answering, or displaying through projects, etc., which is, I recognize a higher stage, but we are not there as of yet. Would you agree to that comment, or you think?
Brother Nasser, in our weekend school at Mariam Masjid, we have almost eliminated all testing. There are some teachers who are holding on to the tests, and I recognize, I'm not a micromanager, so I recognize the right to do whatever they want to, but most of my teachers do not do any testing anymore. And what I do when I walk into classrooms is I sometimes would ask the students, what have you learned today? What are you learning? So I would, because I do have the curriculum maps for all my classrooms, all my teachers, so I can actually double check if the students are following. And by just getting the students to do the games and the discussions and the, you know, for example, one of my teachers today, some, not just one, had all those different PowerPoints, and she would ask each student to read one of those bullets and explain it, and then they would have a discussion. By the end of this class, the students know the material, and they know the material really well. So yes, it does take the teacher a lot of time to prepare that presentation, and she has, you know, I'm referring to a specific teacher, but actually almost all my teachers do that. And she told me that, you know, it takes her a while to prepare, but in reality, she's also saving time because she's not grading, she's not setting tests, she's just using the material. Again, I do have another 1 hour lecture where I talk about assessment, informal assessment, and how to run a school with it without actual testing. But I repeat that I do recognize that because of funding, we are, and because of accreditation, we need to score high on our STAR tests. So I do acknowledge that.
So Dalia, we are over an hour right now. So I will take one last question before we conclude this training or this event. So the question is about the grades, especially for this quarter with online teaching. And there is another question related to, I'm trying to go towards a project-based exam to evaluate students. How do I incorporate this into the online classroom? I would appreciate a very short answer so we can wrap up the meeting.
Okay, let me start with the project. I love this. This is what we need to do. So you just simply incorporate, you have to have objectives what were your SLOs, the student learning objectives that you had at the beginning of the year? What are you trying to achieve? And you're going to build your whole project to achieve, to testing that without formally testing it, to assessing that, I should say. So for example, if among my, I'm going to go to my college, and again, Brother Morsi told me I have to be very short, so I'll try my best. The project that my students are working on right now for my college, they are supposed to be looking at a poem that we've never discussed before, and they're going to research all the different meanings of that poem, and each two students are doing a different poem. So we've got a number of different poems. They're going to be researching them. They're going to try and incorporate the ideas that we've studied throughout the semester into these poems. So I spent a lot of time choosing those poems, because I'm trying to gear them all towards one point, right? But at the very end, I just keep on, like I have like a number of tabs open, and I keep on looking at my SLOs, and I go with my student learning objectives. I have to achieve 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm gonna build these into my assignment, the project, where I'm gonna, for example, I'm gonna ask them to talk about the civil and social responsibilities of that specific author and that historical time or historical period, and place it within the framework of a specific movement, literary movement. And when I put it in that framework, my whole project is governed by that prompt that I have in the project. And if they go through it and fulfill the different points, they've achieved all my SLOs, student learning objectives.
So with
that's your second question. What was your first again?
It was about the grades for this quarter for remote teaching. What do you suggest for grading?
Okay, one of the easiest ways to grade students is to actually tell them, bring stuff up and say, let's discuss them. And let's say, for example, you're teaching specific biology classes. You're going to play videos, you're going to try and relate them, and then have some games and for vocabulary. And then you're going to say, okay, now who's going to tell me, something about what we've studied today? And that kid says it. Okay, that kid got the full points. He does not know you're testing him in class, right? You're also going to be very, very generous with your grades, because they're already going through a lot. So, he got the full points. Another kid messed up big time. You're going to take some points off, but you're going to give him a second chance. A third kid, a fourth kid. So you're going to be basing your testing, your assessment, on what you've taught in every single class. So my teachers are keeping grades every single time they see the students, and then we average them out. So today, this student who did not know any answers, so unfortunately he or she got a 0, but next time he knew so much, so we're going to average them out, and that's how we're going to get the grades. Does this answer your question?
Yes, and with this, really, I want to thank you, Dalia, for this very condensed and very well summarized online school teaching tips. I know that it took you years of experience to put these slides together. And on your behalf, really, I want to thank each and everyone who attended today. And we are sorry for two things. Number one, for the very short notice that we sent this invitation to all of you. And again, this has to do with the last minute really preparation from my side. And I'm very thankful to you and to the presenter for accepting to join in the very last minute. The second thing that I want to apologize about is that the camera that didn't work. Believe me, we tried the camera many times. It was working, and for some reason it didn't work. I also want to, before I let you go, I want to say that Job Networking, ISGH Job Networking have 2 more trainings coming this coming weekend and the weekend after. I encourage you to follow isgh.org/networking. And the last thing, and the very important thing, I saw Dr. Hamid Al-Ghazali here on the list, and Dr. Hamid is one of the pillars of education in United States and North America. and he is one of the education consultants who travels across the United States, of course, before COVID-19. Currently, he is in Houston, and he is the director of Houston Quran Academy. Dr. Hamid.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum
assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's an honor for me that you're here, Dr. Hamid. How are you?
Dr. Dalia, mashallah, good job. Good presentation and good tips. I hope, inshallah, everybody will find them useful in their teaching. And really appreciate your time and effort and putting all this together. Thanks to Dr. Abdul Hamid and ISGH and everybody who's attending. May Allah reward all of you and protect you, inshallah. If you allow me, I make a quick comment.
Yes, please.
I think the issue of the grading is an important issue because everybody at the end want to see what the grade is. So I discussed this last Friday with my staff at Houston Quran Academy, and we went into a lengthy discussion about it. And it seems that there was a consensus that there is a difference between elementary school, middle, and high school, you know. So perhaps what you said is general and applies to everybody, but every school will also be different. Every teacher will be different. But there is something common for all of us, which is to consider the circumstances we are going through. In other words, sometimes you don't realize how much suffering the students are going through, or their parents, or everybody around us. So which one comes first, the grading and this, or the well-being of our students? I think the well-being and the comfort of our students and the suffering they're going through should override other technical issues that we may have. On the other hand, you may have, for example, as we discussed, you may drop the last quarter grade and take the average of the first 3 quarters. That's possible. We do that in grading sometimes. So that's one way to do it. Another way is to give the students a choice between a pass or no pass, or to take a real grade, A, B, C, D, E, and so on, A, B, C, D, F, and so on. So that's also another option. And a third option is to differentiate. And those who are, say, those who are failing, or those who are not really doing very well, perhaps you can give pass, no pass grade. And you keep the rest of the students enjoying. Those who worked very hard, for example, what are you going to do? If you tell them now that it's going to be pass or fail, perhaps they're going to relax and they're not going to do as good as they should. So we have to be very wise. Perhaps we don't tell the students right now what exact strategy we're gonna do. We keep them on their toes in terms of working hard and realizing that working hard is ibadah, and at this time, you know, putting the effort and learning is ibadah that Allah will reward them for. So in conclusion, I think there is a lot of room over here and grading between the elementary, the middle and high, and between different teachers and different students and how to look at it. At the end, as a principal, when the grades come to me, I make a lot of decisions. And I talk to the teachers and discuss with them how we're gonna handle this student, how we're gonna handle this student. And some students have special circumstances. So we really have to consider the student, the teacher, and the average for the whole class. Thank you, and may Allah reward you. It's a beautiful forum, and I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Jazakallah khair, and Jazakallah khair for your beautiful words.
Thank you, Dr. Ghazali. We really appreciate really your attendance, and Brother Nasser Majid and Sister Dalia, and each and every one who attended from the West Coast. And we pray to you. Our hearts and prayers goes to you, and we know the situation in California is not easy. Here, the situation in Houston is not that much different, but we are sheltering at home. And inshallah, this will be very temporary and we will go back to normal. And as Ramadan is only days ahead, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless you all to meet Ramadan. And we encourage you to keep checking our website, isgh.org/networking for our upcoming trainings. And please share with us your opinion, share with us your feedback. What type of trainings do you need so we can arrange with our top speakers and we prepare enough time and we share this information with you in advance. So thank you, and with this I will conclude the meeting. Thank you all.